Attention citizens, do not be alarmed. We are here to entertain. Prepare yourselves for Comic ReLeet.
So, JK, remind us a little bit about how we got to where we are right now.
So,
just quick, just look. I need you to do this really quickly.
yeah. So an episode.
Well, so I want you to just be quick.
Could you not interrupt
Why
me?
are you
My
talking
God.
right now when we could be talking Marvel?
Yeah,
So
what
if
you
you
got?
recall, in our last episode, we did a quick dive into just comic book publication history, what it looked like over the first 30 to 40 years of the industry. We wrapped up hearing about the first couple years of Marvel Comics,
Right.
which really got its debut in 1961 with the Fantastic Four, done by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Success after success over the couple years that followed.
So that was the first 30, 40 years that we covered. We only have about 30 or 40 years left. Is that this is going to be the last episode of the show?
Then comics
yes,
ended.
Yes, they're done.
Like
They're
that. They stopped making comics
Yes.
after that period
They've
of time.
segued just to movies. They
Okay,
only do
we ran
movies.
out of ink.
Oh God,
We
that's
got
like this horrible future.
We got no original stories anymore. Batman is with his mother now, doing
And-
his whatever.
And Flash and another Flash, because you can
Hey,
only have.
I'll say this: like in terms of like DC and their movies, they're kind of hitting me a little bit.
Yeah?
Ooh, I don't know.
Uh,
I just
the
saw
Flash-
Shazam recently, and I was not
Well,
thrilled.
don't watch that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm saying watch the Flash and watch what was Blue Beetle.
No, I'm not gonna watch.
You're not gonna watch it, all right? It's not Marvel.
Yeah, I watch DC movies too. At any rate, we talked about the fact right at the tail end of our episode last time that Stan and Jack were kind of looking to roll out another team book, another group.
Okay.
And Stan wanted to do something different with this one. He had already created characters that gained their powers either through accidents or radioactivity, or maybe they invented something that gave them powers. And he wanted to explore the idea of a hero who was just born different, born with their powers. And the initial idea was that they were going to come out with this book and call it The Mutants.
Okay.
But publisher Goodman did not like that name, didn't think that had the snappiness to it, the appeal. Stan,
I mean, it really doesn't.
It
when you
doesn't.
think- I mean,
It doesn't.
mutants.
I mean,
which is kind of a gross word.
And I don't even know like what year are we at? 60s?
63.
So like is mutant like a common terminology like you would
know.
use?
Yeah.
Like
if
no
I
one know what
if-
the hell
if-
that means.
If I
Is
mean, if I had to
mutant-
deal with like mutant, like
Yeah.
I would probably just want to get rid of them. Now I get it.
Oh.
See? So Stan explored the
coming
idea
together.
that since these characters had something a little extra, they were the X-Men.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so we jump into the first episode of the first issue of the X-Men with really 6 main characters and a central villain, and that's who we want to talk about today. Now,
the 6 main characters or the central villain?
yeah.
Oh, why not all?
okay.
Why
All
not
of them.
all?
Now, listeners, let me go ahead and stress there is 60 years of continuity with these characters. We're not going to do that considerable of a dive. We're not going to talk about what they're doing today. We may not even get into what happened to them in the 70s, 80s, 90s. We're going to talk about
Drugs,
the early years, what
mostly.
they were doing in the first batch of comics with
Yeah.
the X-Men, and
Yeah.
kind of how they developed those characters.
Okay, I'm down.
Fair.
I'm down. All right.
Fair.
Can I try to guess what
As
the
a listener,
6
I'm excited to hear the concise version.
As a co-host, I'm excited that you're excited.
I want to guess what the 6 original were. I'm not quite sure I
Ooh,
know,
ooh,
but I
okay.
think I can guess it. I
well,
think I can guess.
Well, you've got 5 original and a mentor.
Is Professor X the mentor?
That's your mentor.
That's
Okay,
your
Prof
mentor.
X, you got that one right.
All right, you
good
got
job.
Cyclops, right? You got to get your Cyclops.
That's one.
You got to
Cyclops.
get Beast, right? Beast got to
that's
be
2.
that, but it's not going to be like a beast, like a hairy beast, right? It's going to be like a weird,
I don't know what you're
look
talking
at,
about.
all
Ryan.
right. You get a Siren. Isn't Siren or Banshee? Isn't Banshee one of the originals?
Insert sound effect showing Ryan's failure here.
Oh no! I could have sworn there was a guy with a bed sheet. That he was like,
Oh, you were
where-
thinking bed sheet, not
Oh, no.
band sheet. I can understand why you get confused there. Who else was on the original
Okay.
lineup?
Well, let's get into this here.
We got
So,
Cyclops and Beast and Professor X,
you,
right?
you got Professor X as the mentor, Cyclops, Beast, Angel,
Angel. All right.
Okay.
Iceman,
Iceman.
Hey.
and Marvel Girl.
Marvel
Girl.
I feel like they ran out of steam towards the end.
Yes. They perhaps could have run out of steam earlier. We'll,
They're like,
we'll
I
see.
don't know. He's a guy made of ice.
Yes.
And they're like, okay,
No,
well, we
call
need
him-
one more.
Call him Iceman.
Marvel Girl.
Well, don't worry. We're going to retread a lot of these.
We are.
What, they named her Marvel Girl after Marvel Boy?
Or Marvel Comics.
Wasn't Marvel Boy?
There is a Marvel Boy. Yes.
Wasn't that like the
that
old
was,
one?
That was in the 50s.
Right.
Tim, you actually listened to the last episode.
Yeah,
You paid attention.
several
Learning.
times. I had to edit it.
That's awesome.
So,
All right.
So Marvel Girl, not related to Marvel Boy, or are they?
No relation.
No relation.
No relation.
Marvel Girl, Marvel Boy.
She is
no
not
relation.
related to
All right.
Marvel Boy, Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel,
But not Marvel Boy.
but not Marvel.
Thanks.
Boy.
I hate all of that.
Did they ever bring Marvel Boy back?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
let's get into that later.
I can't wait for
sounds
Marvel
great.
Boy to make his
Yeah.
triumphant return.
All right, so let's go through this roster.
All
here.
right.
Let's start with Cyclops. So Cyclops is kind of the de facto field leader of the team. He's
Okay.
the one that kind of guides
Why?
them in battle.
What is that?
That is
Like, I
the
never
ultimate
understood
question.
that one. He was like whiny and
he's the tactical mind of the team.
okay. He's the Batman of the X-Men.
kind
I
of.
wonder if he wasn't so whiny until Wolverine started showing up and going, "I'm going to steal your girl," and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to whine a little."
I have to assume that might be like kind of right.
I
no?
think
right?
that's
As soon
what
as
it
you start
is.
like introducing anti-heroes
Yeah.
a little bit
Yeah.
into the mix, you've got to do something with your
Kind of
lawful
imbalances
goods.
them.
You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly. You have to have
Yeah.
that, like, I mean, like, I feel like they have to have their leader in the group. Like, what's Fantastic Four was going during this period of
Yes.
time, too, right? So, like, you had Mr. Fantastic.
Yes.
They understood how this worked.
Here's what I want.
Okay.
While we go into Cyclops here,
Yes.
I want you to, I mean, really, maybe this won't matter, but this is some nerd way I want to nerd out. What alignment would Cyclops be? Would these all be lawful good
Oh gosh.
kind
yeah.
of thing, or can I kind of picture
I
Cyclops
think he would be a
as-
paladin, like, for sure.
Well, not class.
I'm
What-
gonna kind of give you the broad scope of what they're like, and you tell me what their alignment.
That'll
would
work.
be. I think that would
okay.
be good.
Pressure's on me
So,
then.
Cyclops.
I see the way you turned
Yes.
that around.
Cyclops. His real name is Scott Summers.
Uh-huh.
Although for the first issue, we know him exclusively as Slim Summers.
That should have
'cause he's,
stayed.
Yeah,
Because he's just slim.
he's slim.
That bothers me
That's
that they
how
got
Slim
rid of that.
Shady got his name.
Fun fact.
Slim.
I'm
Shady.
thinking that you made that up. but
No, I may have.
Now Cyclops' powers
gonna
are
call
that
him
he can
Slim.
emit beams of force
Yeah.
from his eyes.
Sure.
This is key. So it's not an energy beam, it's not heat, it's not lasers, it's concussive force.
Right.
So it's like him shooting something out of his eye that could punch you.
Okay. Gotcha.
Can destroy a tank at full intensity. They're pretty brutal.
Now,
Now,
is this Cyclops able to control that without glasses in this period of time?
he
where
is
he's like-
not. He never could.
He'd never do it.
And the reason for this
and
is
he's
kind-
their leader, and
he's
he
their
can't
leader.
control
He's
his
their-
damn power.
We'll delve into his origin story a little bit. Cyclops is an orphan, and his parents died in a plane crash. He was on the plane.
Hilarious.
He was on the plane. It was one of like a little twin engine Cessna type deal. He was pushed out of the plane with his brother in a single parachute.
Oh.
The parents died in the crash. The parachute slightly failed. Not enough where the two boys were terribly harmed, but Scott suffered a head injury.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
That head injury,
Is
they
what
feel,
started.
is what stunted the control of the superpowers. So he
okay.
cannot maintain the beams. If he opens his eyes, the beams are going to fire. Professor Xavier, who we'll get to in a bit, discovered a material called ruby quartz. That is the only known material that can hold back the concussive force.
Oh, okay.
Did they ever go into why?
It's vibranium,
Okay,
I
yeah.
guess, at this point.
Yeah.
In magic.
So,
Magic.
so Cyclops either wears a visor that he can tune the dials to open or close.
Can I-
to allow
can I
him to
interrupt
shout.
you?
You may.
So you brought up the
Vibranium?
vibranium
Yeah.
kind of thing. So my dad was telling me that me and him saw Avatar together, and in
The
plot,
3D animated, not the
the OG, the OG.
Ang Lee,
Yeah, the OG.
amazing.
And
Yeah, not
we
amazing.
we went there, and Dad, I remember telling me on the car ride home, he's like, there was something cheesy about that movie, Tim. And I was like, what? And he was like, unobtainium.
Unobtainium.
And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, this is like a thing that happens in engineering where you create a problem and the only solution is a material that doesn't exist. So you call it unobtainium.
Yeah.
And he was like real snarky about it. Like,
You call it the
can't believe they
MacGuffin.
got
It's a MacGuffin.
unobtainium in
Yeah.
that. So basically what we're talking about with this Block's concussive force of Cyclops
Yeah.
is some unobtainium.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you've got the goggles
It's
or
nonsense.
Yeah.
the visor that he can dial and open it up full blast or make it a pinpoint of force.
Sure.
Or he's got a pair of sunglasses made out of the ruby quartz that he can wear when he's not in costume.
Okay.
Okay. Cyclops is initially portrayed as very dull, kind of
Initially.
kind of
Initially.
You're kidding me.
Yes, yeah, a very milquetoast kind of guy. There's not a lot of things to him.
Okay.
Now let me tell you,
When did that never change?
we'll get into that in another episode, probably. Here's where growing up I had an issue with his power, and
Sure.
and this may have crossed your guys' mind as you were listening over this. We'll address how it was fixed. If it's not energy, if it's not heat, if it's force, when you're dealing with physics, if he's
Doesn't force equal mass times energy?
if
boy.
he's shooting something out of his eyes that can destroy a tank, wouldn't there be a whiplash effect on his
no,
mind?
that's always bothered
Like
me.
his
That
head
has
would just, like-
always bothered me.
Basically snap right
Yes.
off as soon as he allowed that force emission.
Boys, Marvel came up with a solution for
I'm
this.
sure they did.
Cyclops'
Oh,
mutant-
mass times acceleration.
I
Yes.
sure hope someone got fired over that mistake.
But acceleration, hold on.
Hold
This
on
this
a
whole thing's
second.
bothering
Let's
me.
get the physics down for whether or not a.
Well, I sounded
concussive-
stupid, so I need to either learn or, let's see.
So why did they think
Equals-
like to portray
velocity
a
over
concussive
time.
blast is like a laser beam looking thing? Like it's like why call it a concussive blast if it's gonna just look like a laser beam? Just
Yeah.
call it a fucking laser
Yeah.
beam.
So Marvel came up with a solution for that in
What the hell
later
is
years.
mass times acceleration.
Tim's just doing physics problems here while we're talking. Marvel's solution was to slightly alter Cyclops' power.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And it's actually the concussive force does not come from his eyes. His power is that he opens a pocket dimension directly in front of
my
his field
God.
of vision.
Oh.
And that's where the energy comes from. So
Wow.
it's never actually coming from him.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
but
All right.
he's actively opening a pocket dimension. So
Yes.
then why do you need the ruby quart glasses or anything?
Because he can't control the aperture. He can still block it with his eyes closed.
What if he crosses his eyes?
You blow his nose off.
Like, what if he crosses the concussive stream?
You don't cross the stream.
You don't cross the stream?
no.
Yeah,
Actually,
like
I'm trying to think in the comic if it's ever portrayed as two beams coming out of his eyes. I think it meshes into one. Pretty
so.
quick.
Like, is his nose just ripped off every single time he shoots a beam
That's
out?
another mutation.
Oh,
No.
He's basically Wolverine, but the only thing that heals back is his damn nose. He's like, yeah, that hurt a lot.
So
I
did,
don't wanna deal
did
with
Cyclops
this.
ever learn to control more pockets of interdimensionality?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I think at some point.
So that's where it
and
stops.
again, we're talking way later in continuity. I think he did learn to curve his beams,
Yeah. All right.
but that's about it.
Okay, fair enough.
And I don't know
Like in Wanted?
exactly.
He curved
Nice.
the bullet. Yeah,
I don't know if
Curved
that's
the
even in
beam.
continuity anymore that he can do that.
Now
but-
is Cyclops wearing that classic, sexy blue and white, or is
Oh,
that?
we'll get into the uniforms.
Oh my god! I'm excited to talk about the uniforms because somehow people during the '60s making these uniforms. Oh man,
I
I
have
want to know
issue.
what they were smoking because it sounded good.
I have beef with the uniforms here. And speaking of beef,
No.
let's talk about the Beast.
The
Beef.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Where's
Flawless
the beast?
Yes.
segue.
Where's the beast?
The Beast is Henry Hank McCoy.
Hank McCoy. Okay.
Played by Kelsey Grammer.
It was very
Kelsey
good.
Grammer.
Pretty good. And
Frasier.
the Beast's powers are that he is incredibly agile, reasonably strong, enhanced strength, and I don't know of a good way to explain this, but his feet are kind of like simian feet, like he
Okay.
can use his feet to grip.
Yeah.
They bend.
He's basically an ape.
I think that's pretty
He's basically
accurate.
a hairless
yeah,
ape.
hairless ape.
He is not
He's
blue
not
and
hairy
hairy
now.
We're
No.
not talking about that
No,
this
we're
episode.
not doing that.
No. The other thing with Hank is that he is the smartest of the X-Men.
Okay.
He apparently receives several PhDs during his lifetime.
Okay.
His focus is largely biology.
Okay.
Although he is very adept at other sciences.
Now,
as
would
well.
you call this a mutant power, or just literally
No,
he's just
really
person?
smart. Yeah, he's
Okay.
just really smart.
Okay.
That is not portrayed well in the early issues.
Okay.
It kind of ramps up where all of a sudden this guy that normally talked like a street thug is all of a sudden, quoting Shakespeare and science texts.
I will get you with
So
my
maybe
feet
it is a
thing.
mutation.
Yeah.
That evolved over time.
Maybe he hit himself. Maybe it's all just people with concussions and no one had powers at all. This is just all in the mind
Yeah.
of some child who has a snow globe.
Yeah. Beast is definitely the muscle of the group and is portrayed as such.
Okay.
The playboy of the group
Ooh.
is Angel.
Ooh. Okay.
Warren Worthington III,
Warren Worthington.
heir to the Worthington fortune, which is largely based out of aviation, publishing, and a handful of other investment deals is where the
He's the
Worthingtons
third,
got their
right?
money.
Yeah,
he's the third.
He's the third. Yeah.
Now, worth noting, we talked about the history of Marvel Comics in the first episode, and we talked about Marvel Comics #1, which appeared back in the 30s. In that comic, there was a character called the Angel, the
Okay.
Avenging Angel.
That has nothing to do with this angel.
Has nothing to do with this guy. This Angel in the X-Men is an all-new character and is not the same character that appeared in Marvel Comics. They've simply just used the name all over again.
Okay.
However,
But it's the Avenging Angel, or
he's
just
the Angel.
So he's
Angel.
a dirty dog.
well, one is Angel and one's the Angel, right? Here you put the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The.
Yeah, it's like the Predator or Predator. Different
Okay,
movies.
fair. Angel has these
not.
large angel-like wings that protrude from his back,
Okay.
Allowing him to fly. I think they later include the fact that his bones might be somewhat hollow to allow for weight
I'm a bird
distribution.
man.
There's more changes that come with him over history, but to start out, he's literally just a guy that can fly because of his wings. Again, talking about things that kind of annoyed me about the X-Men comic early on is that he has these massive wings that when he's standing still, you can see the wings over the top of his shoulder. You can see the tips of the wings going all the way down to his ankles. But if he wants to dress for normal society, he folds these wings up and puts them under a harness that fits conveniently under his clothes and shows no sort of bulk whatsoever.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Call bullshit on that.
Yeah.
Why is he not
total
doing
bullshit.
the trench coat?
This whole thing, honestly, sounds made up.
Yeah.
God, we should stop talking.
Wow.
So tell me about personality before we go into powers
Okay,
here.
so
he's a playboy.
He is the rich playboy. He's the blonde pretty boy. He's the fun rich kid that is a little snooty and kind of holds his airs above the rest of the team.
All right.
So he's like the Johnny Storm of the.
So
of the
why did he
group.
join the X-Men? Do they go into that at all?
I believe he joined because his wings developed when he was off at private school.
Okay.
And he was actually looking to conceal the fact that he was a mutant from his family.
Gotcha.
Potential shame, concerns along those lines.
Okay.
So that's why he joined the team. Okay, fair enough. Iceman. Bobby.
At this point, I'm sorry. Hold on.
Yeah.
Was this a school?
Yes.
Okay.
So
it was a very low population.
very
school.
low
yes, it's a very low population.
Okay.
We'll kind of circle back to that.
If anything,
when we
it's
talk about
actually
Professor
becoming
Xavier.
more of a cult.
Yeah.
So we've got Iceman, which is Bobby Drake.
Iceman.
He is the youngest.
He's got your six.
Yes, he is the youngest of the team, which I believe in the early few issues they actually do call him out at 16.
Oh,
So
okay.
the others are a little bit older. He has the ability to manipulate cold around him.
Yeah.
Which he manifests by creating a layer of
Pocket
snow.
dimension. Oh, snow.
A layer of snow on his body.
It's all pocket dimensions in this world.
The early issues, he actually kind of looks like
like a snowman.
Like a snowman.
Yeah.
There's a little snowman
that
there.
wears boots. However,
What an
around
interesting design choice.
around issue 8, they refine that and make him a ice
Icier.
character.
Yeah. Okay. Because that definitely looks like Snowman.
Yeah,
Snowman the Mummy.
He would be Snowman. He is.
What a weird concept, though. They're like, all the abilities that they're giving people, and they're like, I don't know, this guy's made of fucking ice. I don't know.
It's
what
interesting
to, do with this.
to see the evolution of the
Yeah,
creative
like-
design of these things, and the fact that he was called Iceman from the start.
Yeah.
and they
It
still
just,
made him look like
it
Snowman.
feels
Yeah.
like even at the first comic, they were creatively bankrupt from what they're trying to accomplish
Right.
there. They're like, I don't know. This one is like, dude, we just only done 3 of them. Like, you're already not being able to come up with concepts.
Iceman is characterized as a little bit more juvenile. He's kind of the class clown.
Okay.
He's the goofball of the team.
He's a goofball.
Because he's at least 2 years younger than everybody else
Sure.
as well.
Oh, right.
Before we talk about Marvel Girl,
Does he take all this seriously?
he does. He wants to be a good hero, but he's also the doofus.
So is there like but he can conjure ice or cold from any. It could be a hot summer day,
Yes.
and he'd be like, "You need some ice
He's
in that
gonna-
drink.
he's gonna chill
I'm
your-
gonna be your."
He's going to put a
Spencer.
snowball in your shorts.
Okay,
That's what he's
there
going
you
to do.
go. Oh, is that what he does?
Yeah. Before we move on to Marvel Girl, because Marvel Girl actually joins the comic about midway through. Let's talk about Professor X, the mentor of this team. So, visually, Professor X was styled after Yul Brynner.
Yul
Actor
Brynner.
Yul Brynner. So, bald.
What is this name? That sounds so
yes,
old.
Bald, vaguely
Was
Asian.
this some sort of Christmas thing?
Yeah, no. Professor Xavier is the world's most powerful telepath. He can see all your inner thoughts. He can project his thoughts into yours. There's virtually nothing he can't do in terms of reading minds, mind control, overwriting memories, projecting false images into your head, anything along those lines. He is also crippled. He was crippled in battle with a character named
Magneto. Yeah, I saw the movie.
Yep.
Lucifer.
okay.
Oh, he fought the devil.
I got
Wait, wasn't Lucifer the devil character in X-Men First Class, the movie with Magneto rise to power shit?
Yes.
Or yeah, I'm not wrong.
I don't know.
I'm really right.
I don't know.
All things considered.
All that being said, he fought the devil and he got
And he
crippled.
lost.
the
and he
father
lost.
of Nightcrawler.
Okay, that's Azazel.
Azazel,
Azazel.
who's a
Yes.
different devil.
Yes.
Oh, Azazel.
Yes.
That was hilarious.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm Azazel. I'm Nightcrawler, but red.
So Xavier is also the world's greatest authority on mutants.
We're talking about Nightcrawler?
no.
Oh, sorry. I was
Xavier.
just thinking about Nightcrawler. Xavier's
and-
the world's most
Got Nightcrawler
authority
on mutants.
On mutants.
Yes.
Okay.
And he created Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters.
Okay.
To train mutants to properly use their abilities so they weren't a danger to society.
I like that that name stuck and it's like been around for a really long time because it's just super old. And then as Xavier was, portrayed, he's always just been super old, kind of thing. Yeah, I dig it. All right, I like it.
Behind the scenes, he's actually working with the FBI.
Okay.
Because the FBI is now aware of mutants existing, and so
Hey,
they
you got some tips for us.
they
yeah?
let him know of potential mutants in emergence, and then he goes and finds them and brings them in.
So okay, all right. So his motives are they altruistic ultimately?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll get in.
All right.
We'll kind of get into that when we talk about the villain in the book too, and how their opinions different.
Okay.
He was like technically like the first NSA.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, oh, I can tell if someone's going to be spying on us. I don't know. I'm listening to all conversations.
Okay, I'm probably going to ruffle some feathers of some of our fans when I say this, but my early impressions of Professor Xavier,
Hi, I'm Professor Xavier.
he's kind of a douche.
That was my early impression.
Well,
of,
I've always thought Professor X was a little bit of a douche.
So in the first issue, he doesn't speak for the first 8 or 9 pages. He simply projects his thoughts telepathically.
I don't
these
need
are old
to
comics.
speak.
So how many
Yeah.
pages are these comics?
20 something.
It takes too much effort to move my lips.
For half the issue, he's not talking, and then when he finally does, he announces, "I feel like it's comfortable for me to speak now," which is really weird. And also, the first page, I'm gonna highlight to this.
So it was
'cause
like the mysticism kind of thing that they were highlighting.
if you notice the first page, what
looks like
do you
the-
see that Xavier is sitting in?
A chair.
That's just a chair.
Good old fashioned chair.
Oh, he has polio.
And
okay.
they even put the recliner up for and cover his feet up.
Give-
But then
This is-
several
this is
don't look
definitely
at
a
my
little
freak
culty.
legs.
yeah, several pages later when we get into I think it's page 8. Look at that. What do we got there?
Oh, we got a wheelchair.
We got a wheelchair.
Okay.
So
So he moved over to the
it's
wheelchair.
a little inconsistent.
That's his
first-
magical power.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can turn normal recliners into wheelchairs.
Yes.
I've made this lazy boy a boy on the go.
So to me, in the first issue, he always came across a little pompous. Granted, he's their teacher, he's their professor. Maybe that's what they wanted to
But
illustrate.
how
with him,
old
but
is he in this?
we don't know.
Well,
He's-
hold on. This might be like 60s, impressions of, respect
the
for your
father.
elders kind of thing
Yeah.
a little bit where they're like, Oh, put your feet up, Grandpa. Thank you for everything you've done for us.
I hate all of you.
I may have you lose respect for Xavier before we're done with this series.
I didn't
I
start
really
with any. I'm
honestly
just giving
don't.
him the benefit of the doubt.
You know what I had respect for? The actor who played Professor X.
Patrick
That's it.
Stewart.
Yeah,
Yes,
Patrick
Well done.
Stewart. And that man-
Or
Timothy
James,
Chalamet.
James McAvoy.
Oh, James McAvoy.
no,
Chalamet.
we'll do Timothy Chalamet
I
later.
just really
No.
like Tim.
I really do like Timothy Chalamet.
All right, the final member of the X-Men joined in issue 1, and that is Marvel Girl.
Okay.
Hey, we need some chicks up
sorry,
in
issue
here.
1?
Jean Grey, issue 1.
Okay.
She joins. Part of the plot line of that first
Wait,
issue
she's
is
Jean
her
Grey?
new arrival.
Hold on. Back it up. I thought you said she came later, and you said she was in issue 1.
She's late in issue 1.
Late
so
in
so
issue 1. Okay.
the first half of the issue is setting up the existing team and
Gotcha.
their powers, and then she arrives to create new dimensions for the team because
She's a girl.
She's
they
a-
added a girl.
We need some
Oh my
chicks
gosh.
up in this house.
And so Jean Grey has the power of telekinesis.
But not
So-
not
telepathy.
Okay.
yeah,
so-
there's a big difference.
Yes, so
Telekinesis is apparently what Cyclops has because it's just force pushing things.
Xavier can read minds. Jean Grey can move things with her mind.
Uh-huh.
This,
Okay.
this is a big difference.
Right.
Now, this is also kind of inconsistent because several times during the first several issues of the series, they refer to her power as teleportation.
Sure.
It's not. It's telekinesis. She's not characterized very well early in the series.
Okay.
Essentially, her character is she's the girl.
Gotcha. Okay.
And to create even weirder dynamics, you have Beast and Angel fighting for her attention,
Okay.
and Cyclops secretly pining for her.
Okay. All right.
The only one of the group who doesn't seem to show any interest in her is Bobby Drake.
Bobby Drake.
Which
yeah.
we can assume
He's
because he's younger than everybody else.
Okay. Not because he's made
and
of snow.
Professor X was all about that, right?
Spoiler. There may be other reasons.
Okay.
We'll get
But,
into that
but
later.
Professor X must have been all about that.
Oh
He's
my
like,
God! Was
I'm a-
he gay?
What is revealed several issues later is that Professor Xavier actually has the hots
Oh,
for Jean
yeah.
Grey as well.
Hot for
and
teacher!
part of the reason he brought her to the school was that he had a secret love for her, and he was concerned that her power would grow out of
Ooh,
control.
this
or that
has
she
not
could be
aged
abused.
well.
I'm starting to
It-
feel like these all were invented by some nerdy guys
Yeah.
with some fantasies.
Yeah, this was bad. This was
Okay.
bad. I don't know what to give you on Marvel Girl. She's kind of boring.
How
as a
old is
character.
Marvel Girl?
If Bobby Drake is the youngest at 18 or 16, sorry,
16,
I'm
yeah.
putting everybody else in the group at about 18 to 19.
Okay.
They're late high school to early college ages.
Okay.
okay. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
All right.
I'm just going to get a bunch of guys and one girl here. Now, it couldn't have just been that they were like, oh, you're the only other mutant we've ever seen.
I love
Like,
that Xavier.
or have
girl's
they
a-
encountered other mutants and go, well, we don't want you in our club. We
Not as of yet.
okay.
We're gonna have more mutants introduced over the course of the
But
series.
are they meeting them for the first time? Like
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
they're just going like, oh, you have powers, you're in.
Yeah.
Like that's yeah.
the other mutant that they meet for the first time in issue 1 is a gentleman named Magneto.
Magneto.
Hey.
He is brought on to be the big bad of the X-Men universe.
I think I've heard of this guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Magnets were huge back in the 60s.
Yeah, we can go with several aliases. He's known as Eric Lensair. He's known as Max Eisenhart.
Okay.
Or he's known
Eisenhart.
simply as Magnus.
Okay.
This shifts over time for a variety of reasons, but he has a series of different aliases. He has very intense control over magnetism. His power level is off the charts. He's also very skilled. He is far more sophisticated at using his abilities than the X-Men are.
Is he like more adept than even Professor X at this point? Like
About on par. So if
On
you
par.
talk about the fact that Xavier is the most powerful and most skilled mentalist on the
Yeah.
planet, Magneto is the most skilled at using an external power. They actually know each other. They have some history together. That's revealed over time. And interestingly, they have very different viewpoints on how mutants should go forth in the world. And that kind of comes back to Stan Lee's original intent with this book. Part of the reason he wanted to do the mutants was he wanted to make an allegory for racism, where, again, you're looking at early 60s here. So what else is going on in here? Women's right to vote, civil rights movement, a lot of things happening. We look at mutants as the oppressed, the downtrodden, the people that are picked on. Xavier wants to take the Martin Luther King Jr. path of we should just fit into society. Why can't everybody get along? We should do our best to appease people and show them that we're not a threat. Magneto takes the Malcolm X direction of let's just take control.
Okay.
We are
we're genetically superior.
Yes, we are
so,
genetically superior. We
done.
should take over. That becomes a recurring dynamic throughout the X-Men book as it continues on even to this day. Those two opposing viewpoints, and it's probably not emphasized quite so much early on, but it really takes on steam.
So does Magneto have any of his own cadre kind of thing at this point?
He will soon.
Okay.
All right. So let's talk about these first few issues here because we talked about that. This is an.
I feel like you've got a first few issues to have with this comic.
Yeah, I'm
like you seem downtrodden already.
Oh boy.
So let's start with the fact that the characters are boring.
Yeah,
They're just
They've got some rather generic, dull powers to me.
What is their first thing in the first comic? What is their challenge in the first comic? What do they have to overcome?
Magneto attacks a military base that has missiles, and they have to stop him from taking the missiles using his.
And they do that dully. They do that as dull as possible.
They manage to
him.
force him away. Yeah.
They're like, all right, we got rid of him.
Yeah.
And
There's
my
not
magnets.
There's not a lot of personality to the characters, and even the personalities they do have are very trite. They're not dynamic. Okay. You've got a smart guy, you've got a fancy guy, you've got the kid, you've got the dull guy, you've got the girl. Okay. That's it.
All right. Good dynamic.
Yeah. And then Ryan, you touched on this earlier.
But you're saying they're boring, but did people back then think this was boring?
We'll come back to that.
Oh, okay.
We'll come back to that.
We're circling back to a lot of things,
Yeah,
JK.
yeah,
I don't think we're going to hit all
I think
these
we'll touch
things.
on all of them.
All right.
The other thing that really kind of bummed me out over the early issues of the series is let's look at these costumes here that are so
blue and yellow.
They are blue and yellow, and depending on printing quality of the time, they kind of could have come across as black.
I'm
and
watching
yellow.
Marvel Girl looking like she's dancing.
Yep.
That's
Oh,
amazing.
she's having a good time.
Yeah, she's having a good time.
Hey, this guy's got some magnetism forces that are happening.
Yeah.
Do you think magnets were just as popular as I believe they were to be in the 60s?
So wait a second. If Cyclops has got force and Magneto's got force, right? So it looks like Magneto's blocking Cyclops' force with his force.
It's kind of like an unstoppable force beating an immovable object.
No,
you got it out. No, that was good.
That
Yeah,
worked?
that was good.
Boy,
Yeah.
I realized I was going down a bad path.
That was a
Can't fool
mouthful.
the fool again.
Yeah. Woo. Okay.
All right, no one wear metal, and I think we can beat him?
Sure.
I don't know.
All right. So you guys have asked a lot of questions about where this is going. Should we press on? Should we talk about where it's going, or do you have further questions about?
Well,
the
I mean,
cast of characters?
you rag on the costumes a bit, man. I mean, like,
So can Magneto fly at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
He can use his magnetism to fly.
He can attach himself to the magnetic
Field of the
field.
Earth.
Yes.
are they explaining that in the comic that it's magnetic field of the Earth? That's fucking dull. If I read that in a comic, I go, I'm bored.
Really?
Like, why? Just like he can fly. Just
I
say
don't know.
he can fly.
That seems kind of cool to me. But I mean, okay. So how sensitive is this magnetism? All right. So could Magneto go to space?
Yes.
Oh.
He would eventually actually build a home in space known as
yeah.
Asteroid M.
Okay. So how far? Okay.
M
let's
for
say
Magneto.
that there's a hot water heater like the one I'm looking at right now. Okay. That's suspended in midair.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And it is a immovable object. Okay. How far away can that get from him? Say in the vacuum of space, that he would still be able to like latch on to it and suck himself towards it. Boom. Answer that question, expert.
3.7 nautical miles.
Wow.
Yes.
I'll be damned. And they probably went over that.
His power is pretty finely controlled. He can actually take iron dust particles and manipulate them so that he can send messages in the sky printed by magnetic dust.
Oh, wow. He is tough.
He's
I never used that in the movies.
he's pretty
Okay,
immensely
they could've-
powerful.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. You know,
Yeah,
like
like
you can
that-
write in cursive in the sky.
Oh my God, this guy has perfect penmanship.
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about the series. Where does it go after first issue? Let's talk about some of the key issues and we'll touch on some of the other characters that were introduced. Probably not to this level of detail, but we'll introduce them at least because some of them do become important to Marvel history. Issue 2, nothing really happens. Issue 3, they introduce a character called the Blob.
The Blob.
Fred J. Dukes, who is a big, monstrously fat dude that can't be moved when he doesn't want to be moved.
Okay, fair.
Issue
What if Juggernaut runs into the Blob?
This is one of those.
Man,
what if
I don't think
scenarios.
Juggernaut
We just don't know.
exists right now.
We just don't know.
I really want to know what happened in comic 2.
Nothing. It's kind of
Like they're sitting around doing.
Well, hang on. We'll pull up comic 2.
What are they doing?
They fought. Oh, they did fight the Vanisher, a guy who could disappear.
Yeah.
So it's a villain that retreats.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And by the end, he was gone.
Issue number 4.
God, girl, God.
Issue number 4. This is important, Ryan. You referenced this earlier. We introduced the Brotherhood of Evil.
Okay.
Which is
Ew.
Magneto's mutant team.
Here we go.
They consist of the Toad,
The Toad.
who is kind of like the counterpart to the Beast.
Yeah,
He can
no,
jump
I know
around.
what happens
That
when
one,
lightning
we
strikes
did
one.
it. We made the counterpart.
We
to
have
the beast.
Mastermind,
Mastermind.
who could project illusions.
Okay.
And then we have a brother and sister team, Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch. Actually introduced as X-Men villains before they would eventually become Avengers and heroes in their own right.
Okay.
Fun fact that when you look at the cover for issue 4, Scarlet Witch is wearing an entirely green costume. It's miscolored.
Like the Blue Raja.
Yeah. It should be Quicksilver in green and Scarlet Witch in red. Issue number 10 reintroduces Kazar and the Savage Land. Kazar was kind of like a Tarzan-like character.
Yeah. No, I have no idea who you're talking about.
Nope.
Kazar? How do you spell
Kazar.
that?
K-A
K-A
dash
dash
Z-A-R.
Z-A-R.
Kazar.
He's kind of like a Tarzan, and he resides in a place called the Savage Land, which is actually in Antarctica, but it's below Antarctica, and it's an area of the Earth that dinosaurs still exist.
Well, that makes sense.
Oh,
okay.
nice.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
And are these dinosaurs mutants?
No. they're just plain
Dinosaurs.
dinosaurs. Issue 12, we bring out the Juggernaut.
Juggernaut.
Hey.
Juggernaut is a character named Kane Marco, who is actually the stepbrother to Professor
Professor
Xavier.
X. Yes.
There you go.
Issue 17.
Fathers or mothers, kids?
It was the same mother.
Okay.
Same mother.
So did Juggernaut have a magic helmet?
Juggernaut got his power. He was a soldier.
Okay.
I think it was in Vietnam where they found this, but there was a hidden temple where he discovered a gem called the Gem of Sitarak. Okay. Sitarak. Okay. Pronunciation to be determined.
Sure.
He touched it, and it gave him the powers of being the Juggernaut, which he cannot. Once he starts moving, he cannot be stopped.
Okay.
That's his power.
So okay.
Wait, then
all
how
right.
does he stop?
By his own accord.
So he can't stop himself.
Yes.
So, okay, maybe this is a little too granular, but how did he, a non-mutant type, get into this situation where he's picking up a magic gem that makes him Juggernaut?
As a soldier.
As a
He was out at war and discovered this. I can't remember if it was Korean War. I think it's Vietnam. I think it was Vietnamese War.
All right.
He and Xavier were actually both soldiers. This is pre-paralyzation.
Oh, okay.
And it just
Now,
so happened.
imagine he
it
was
just so happened
paralyzed
that
during the war.
He's just like going through the
Why
Vietnamese
did they
jungle.
send me out here? I'm the first to die.
it just so happened that Juggernaut was the one that,
Right.
that found it. He's
What
a
happens if Xavier? Was
Did
using
Xavier
that
have
ability?
telepathic powers when he was in the army?
yes.
Ooh.
He's had them since his early teenage
So
years.
that's how we won the Vietnam
he was
War.
he was actually
God
even
dang
Yes.
Professor X. You've done it again.
If you look at Xavier as a teenager, he was actually a child prodigy. He was a brilliant athlete because he could predict the moves of the people
Oh, he
opposing
cheated.
him. He cheated.
He
yeah.
cheated.
Yeah.
Again,
All right.
Xavier. Kind of a
Yeah.
douche.
kind of a dick.
Kind of a
Yeah.
douche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like Magneto wouldn't have been very helpful in the jungle.
No. Issue 17.
Where's
This
my
is pivotal
magnets?
because at issue 17, creator Jack Kirby decides he's done with the X-Men. He's moving on. Now, again, I'm probably going to catch some heat from people, but I'm not a fan of Jack Kirby artwork. I think it's very
Oh, yeah?
plain. Even of the times, it's very plain. His later work is not great either. But what they did is they took Jack Kirby off the book and they replaced him with a series of guys from the Marvel bullpen of artists who kind of all draw very similarly. So it wasn't like when he left that we suddenly got a kickstart of
Well, he probably
great new
was
artwork.
like this is the guideline. Here's the template to
Yep,
make characters.
exactly.
This is the way you're going to draw.
So what did Jack Kirby draw that you're saying is unimpressive early on, kind of thing?
So he was responsible for Fantastic Four, for Hulk, for the X-Men. He would later do a series called The Elementals, not the Elementals. I'm sorry, The Eternals, which was the Marvel movie that didn't do
I
so
also
well.
didn't see that.
Yeah. He also did one for DC called The New Gods, which was basically, hey, I'm going to do the Eternals for that company too. And then he also had a run on Captain America in the 70s that,
What? This makes sense to me, though, because if you think about Fantastic Four and their powers, right, and a bad artist, right, you need somebody who misdraws how long somebody's arms are. An invisible woman.
I don't even need to draw
a guy made of bubbles, basically, and a dude. I don't know who doesn't like to draw fire.
I feel like I feel like the thing is probably the hardest thing that he had to draw.
Jack Kirby is a legend among comic artists, and I don't want to decry.
No,
what
never
he's
mind.
done.
I think Jack Kirby's a terrible artist.
I am not inspired by his art.
All right, fair enough.
If I were to list, my top.
He was still learning back in the day.
Ooh.
Or did he just never? He never got better.
If I were to list my
Are you
top
saying that Kirby sucks?
Hey,
hot take,
them's fighting words.
hot take.
That's a little video game reference there for all you.
So
Leaders fans out there.
he leaves? He has a bunch of people in the bullpen. They come out. They start drawing. You get the same, right?
Right.
It's kind of the same.
That's
Yeah.
the same
Okay.
thing.
After he's gone, we introduce a character in issue 19 called the Mimic. This is a character named Calvin Rankin. He is not a mutant.
Mimic.
He got his powers through scientific means. And part of the reason they brought him in was to kind of stir the pot, create a little bit of a dynamic. He actually joins the X-Men on a temporary basis, but doesn't last long.
So is his power what I think his power is?
His power is that he can duplicate the powers of heroes
There
that
you
he's
go.
around. So essentially, you have all of the 5 individual X-Men, and then you have the Mimic that can do everything that those 5 can do.
Yeah, no, this has always been confusing to me. So, I can understand why he'd go away because that seems like a tough concept to, hold up and work with.
Yeah.
I get this.
Yeah.
Okay,
And he's a jerk. They write him as a jerk. It does create some animosity amongst the characters. It does create some drama. So that's fun.
Yeah.
But
also,
So how is-
for a comic series that's trying to invoke the idea that you're teaching people how to use their powers, and then you have one guy who's like, "Well, I get all the powers,
Yeah.
and I already know how to use everyone, even if I've never seen this person before." Like, like that completely negates that.
yeah.
So okay, all right. So do we have personality development at this point? I mean,
Slight. So we're starting to see Hank become the smart one. That's definitely more exhibited. We're still seeing though the very generic. Warren's the playboy, Scott's dull, Jean's the girl, Bobby's the clown. Also, the issue that they introduced the Mimic would actually be Stan Lee's last as the writer. He exits the book and brings on a young man writing his first comic for the first time named Roy Thomas.
Oh,
Roy
Thomas,
Thomas
the
has-
Roy Thomas.
Oh my
Roy
God.
Thomas. Now,
I was just pretending I knew who that is.
I'm sure you were. Roy Thomas is a legend among comics. Roy would actually go on to become the first editor-in-chief at Marvel after Stan Lee. He would write a number of comic books. He would be involved with the Avengers. He would be involved in DC with the Justice Society, with All-Star Squadron. Roy's passion was for heroes from the 1940s and kind of revamping them and getting them back in public interest. I believe that Stan Lee, when he died recently, his last words on his deathbed were, "Take care of my boy Roy."
Oh.
An homage to Roy Thomas.
And then he said Rosebud.
Because they're so close.
And then the thing fell.
So Roy Thomas takes over the writing of this book, and it immediately does not get better. It pretty much stays the same. It's kind of flat. There's not a lot happening. He does introduce a few more characters. In issue 28, he introduces the Banshee.
There
there you go, Ryan.
20. I was only
I
28
had to hold my
episodes.
excitement. You were
I
close.
was only 28 episodes off.
The Banshee is a guy named Sean Cassidy. He is Irish. He has the ability to manipulate sound.
Okay.
He's
which-
Irish?
yes.
All right. Right on.
And he can
Surprise.
fly. He can do a variety of things. He's initially brought on as a villain. However, it's later revealed that he is either being mind controlled or blackmailed, or
Why not
possibly
both?
both.
Why not
But
both?
he's not acting on his
Just let
in his
it be.
best.
He just
staff.
screams. That's all he does.
Issue 39. Okay, now I'm starting to get excited because we bring on.
Oh, before you get excited, here.
Yeah.
Yeah, hold
Deflate that shit.
All right. So, how often are these comics coming out?
Monthly.
Monthly.
They're monthly
So,
comics.
39. I mean, we're talking 15 years.
What?
I'm sorry. Math is not my strong suit.
We're almost about.
No, we're talking about 4 years.
3 years in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
3 years in.
Yeah.
All right.
We get individual costumes for the X-Men.
Ooh.
They actually make them multicolored. Although Cyclops pretty much sticks with the same costume
Yeah.
he's always had.
Yeah.
'Cause it's-
I would have to believe that the reason why they just kept them the same is it's easy as hell to draw the same like outfits for everyone instead of individualizing. So they're like, why do that?
Ryan, are you daring to say that Jack Kirby took shortcuts?
Well,
Shade.
boom. Did Fantastic Four? They all wore the same fucking outfit,
They did.
didn't they? God dang it! I gotta stop cussing.
Jack
All right,
Kirby.
sorry.
All right. Issue 42, a pivotal book in the series because Professor Xavier dies.
Oh.
Oh,
He is killed by a creature known as Grotesque.
Ooh.
With a K.
that's horrible.
Grotesque.
With a K?
With a K.
Oh, okay.
So KROTESQUE.
Grotesque.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Xavier is out of the book.
Oh,
The school
He's
is
dead.
The school
they
is
didn't
no longer
pull
operating.
a fake off. Yeah. Oh,
The school-
they did.
The
All
school
right.
is no
Mm.
longer operating. What will the X-Men do? So in the next issue, it is revealed that Jean Grey actually has telepathic powers now, in addition to telekinesis.
But just like a little bit.
Nope, she's got full on.
Well, that's just that's convenient.
because
That's
Professor
just
Xavier
convenient.
decided before he dies, I'm gonna unlock her power that she's always had that we've kept hidden from everybody.
Wait. So why did he wait till then?
I feel like if we keep asking these kinds of questions, this show will never go.
I don't get it though. Like, is it because he's kind of a dick?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Following this issue, Roy Thomas would also leave the series.
Thomas would also be revealed to have
yes.
telepathy.
And
They all had telepathy.
much like the art duties were kind of carried on by the Marvel bullpen, the writing duties were now carried on by a series of writers.
All right.
And for that reason, we're just going to say that everything through the 40s and 50s in the X-Men series is pretty rough. In fact, they quit calling the book The X-Men. It started to be called The X-Men featuring Angel or The X-Men featuring Beast. And it would be more of a solo story focused on those characters.
This doesn't automatically tell me this is a bad thing. So what made those
It was a
fun?
little off the rails. It was
Yeah?
You're taking a team book and not making it a team book anymore. You're focusing more on the individuals.
Yeah.
So
and they
that-
probably focused on the ones that are like fan favorites more so than like some of the others,
yeah,
right?
yeah. They would
So
team-
who were the fan favorites then? You just confirmed that.
probably Angel. In issue 49, we introduced.
Do these characters age as we go?
Oh, we need to do a whole episode on how time passes in comic
Okay,
books.
gotcha.
So,
All right.
so consider for the fact that the entire time we're talking about the X-Men, they're the same age. That does not change.
All right.
But yeah, that's
It's kind of like a Simpsons thing.
that's a
going on.
whole other thing.
Yeah.
In issue 49, we introduced a character named Mesmero, who is a hypnotist, a mutant hypnotist. That's his power. We also have an artist come on board for 1 issue, 2 issues, named Jim Steranko. Jim Steranko is the first point where we start to see art that deviates from the Marvel style, where it's dynamic, it pops, it's kind of cool to look at. In issue 50, we introduce a character named Polaris, who is Lorna Dane, who is largely believed at this time to be Magneto's daughter.
Ooh.
Because
Makes
she
sense.
also has powers over
Magnetic
Magneto.
Yeah, okay.
Polaris.
Yeah.
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 We have the names that we do things
Yes,
with.
yes.
That's how we get our things.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at beasting.
Yeah.
Issue
Beast.
54, we bring on Alex Summers. And we've heard the name Summers before because that's Scott Summers' Cyclops. Alex is
Havoc.
his younger brother.
Oh, okay.
and
So
he-
we've got no progenies yet.
No. Alex is revealed to be the other brother that survived the plane crash, although he did not have a head injury.
They really held on to that one for a little bit.
Yes,
then.
yes.
Okay.
Did Scott just never visit his brother?
They were in separate orphanages. They did not. They were not. Able
Wait,
to
how
communicate.
old were they when the little plane crash happened?
Preteen.
But what? Then they knew that there was a brother out there.
But they were in separate
Oh,
orphanages.
Well, it's
Ryan.
different times. They couldn't look
Yes.
up.
We don't have cell
anything.
phones back
These
then.
days,
no, so-
most children get kept together.
I mean, he had a. I mean, Scott did have a guy who can, read minds and can kind of find people from a distance. But whatever.
Now, at the introduction of Alex Summers at this point, we don't reveal that he's got powers. We just think he's another character. He's Scott's brother, and that's it. Issue 55 is the return of Roy Thomas. And
we're almost 5 years into this thing.
Yeah, and he comes packing heat because the next several issues are fire. They are so good. They bring on an artist named Neil Adams. Again, much like Steranko, Neil Adams breaks from the Marvel style. He's got really eye-popping visuals. He draws characters from weird camera angles. It's not your typical comic. It's very lively. It's very vibrant. It's kind of
Say this guy's name again.
Neil Adams. Neal. It's pretty cool. Neil would not have a long career with Marvel because he would go over to DC and have a legendary run doing Green Arrow, Green Lantern, some Justice League, some Batman. They would not stick around long. It was only a handful of issues that Roy and Neil would do together, but the pivotal one,
These do pop.
the pivotal one would be issue 58, where they do reveal that Alex Summers has powers. He has powers very similar to Cyclops in that he can release energy in concentric circles from his body, and he is known as Havoc. The cover that Neil Adams does for the issue that introduces Havoc, I'm going to pull that one up for you guys real quick because it's badass. I think it's one of the coolest visual covers from that era. I just think that pops. I think that's a fun cover.
No, that's epic. Yeah. Well done.
Yeah.
He's screaming.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the partnership between Neil and Roy would not last long. They only did a handful of issues in the X-Men before parting ways. I think Neil's done by like issue 63. He's out there.
Okay, so that was real fast.
Yeah. Issue 64, we bring in a character named Sunfire, which is Shiro Yoshida. He is the first Japanese mutant to be revealed.
Okay.
Has nuclear energy coursing through his body, which he exhibits as fire. He's
Sure. Kind of.
Yeah.
Whoa. Let's examine this for a little bit.
No,
they brought
we
on a
don't
Japanese
really.
guy
Yeah.
with nuclear powers.
Son.
Go ahead and say it.
That's all I'm going to say. We can move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty on point.
Yeah.
Does he need nuclear energy in order to use
He
his
doesn't
power?
need it. His body generates it.
Dear God.
Yes.
This guy is just pure radiation. Anyone around him just dies.
Good news. In issue 65, it's revealed that Professor Xavier was never dead in the
Oh
first
my
issue.
God. I told you.
All right.
He actually had another mutant known as Changeling take his place
To die for him.
Wow. And that Xavier has been kind of in the shadows
what a dick.
guiding the X-Men from that point forward.
Who later in the cartoon series would be called Morph.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
He's part of continuity. Good job there, Ryan. Well done.
Fantastic.
Because they kill him off of the cartoon
Yes,
series.
yes.
too.
And after they bring Xavier back in issue 65, in issue 66, they use the Hulk. They use the gamma radiation on the Hulk to kind of stabilize an injury.
Whoa. Where did the Hulk come from?
The Hulk was a guest star. They bring
Yeah,
him on. They have a quick
Featuring
interaction
the
with him,
Hulk.
Okay.
featuring the Hulk as a last-ditch effort for the series because issue 66 is the last X-Men comic.
Wow.
It ends.
Okay.
It goes into reprint status with issue 67, which is kind of like not good at the time.
What's that mean?
Basically, they just took old issues of the X-Men, slapped a new cover on it, and treated it like a new comic.
Okay.
So people could buy it again. They did that for issues 67 through 93 before discontinuing the series.
Wow.
So, earlier you asked the question, well, wasn't the X-Men popular? You know, what is it just me? No.
Is that what I sound like?
It kind of did. Yeah.
Well, doesn't that make sense?
Oh.
The answer to that question is no. It wasn't a great selling book. It was a marginal title, especially when you compare it to the success of Fantastic Four, to Avengers, to Spider-Man, and ultimately Marvel Publishing just kind of lost interest in this thing and said, "Let's stop throwing writers."
Well, hold on. You just threw out some big names there. Like, what was going on in these other comics? I mean,
They were better.
yeah.
Yeah, they were.
Oh, who was doing it? I thought these were Stan Lee things.
They were Stan Lee.
Well, but
So-
Stan Lee walked away from X-Men, and like I guess when
Yeah.
the person who starts this process goes, "Well, I'm done with it," then like I'm sure a lot of people go, "Well, what's the point of carrying this on?"
For sure.
I feel like, and I have a great passion for X-Men. An X-Men comic later in the line, so you can kind of assume it was revived later. An X-Men comic later in the line was the first comic I ever bought. That's the one that got me interested in comics. I've definitely got a passion for X-Men.
This was what year?
I bought my first one in 74.
Okay.
So
we got like 10 years here, 10-year
Yeah.
span of,
Yeah.
okay.
I feel like they had the roots of a good idea with X-Men, but Stanley never really
Like,
cultivated
went for it.
And it's as a comic, it just kind of falls flat. In preparation for doing these episodes, I actually went back and reread all of the first 66
Of course you
issues
did.
of this, and good God, I hate them just as much now as I did back in the day. They're
Okay.
they're not good comics.
Man,
The first
you are a different human than I am. Like I feel like I'd have been done with
how much?
like 2.
I mean, like, how many pages is a comic usually for this era? Like,
About 24.
24.
Yeah.
All right.
So if I do my math real quick, 66 times 24.
That took you 10 years?
You read
You
read
10 years worth of
100 pages of comics?
Hold on. He's got his math right.
Carry the one.
That's a lot.
I read 110.
Now he
pages.
manipulates magnets?
Yes.
Are you a mutant?
Are you a mute?
So that
My
brings
name
us,
is Comic
yes.
Book.
So that brings us to an interesting end of the first era of the X-Men. Now, certainly, you guys have referenced Wolverine. You've talked about some other things. So this certainly wouldn't be the last time we see the X-Men, but it's the last time we see this original lineup for a while.
Okay.
In that incarnation, it's kind of a blah book.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, is it blah because there's been so much that has been like? Do you think that it at least was a catalyst to better comics that, like, would piggyback off that and go, well, this is an interesting concept. Let me ride with this, and then we got better comics out of that. Do you think that it was inspirational in that sense?
Maybe I like the idea that it laid the groundwork of the Magneto versus Xavier, the dichotomy of how mutants should take their place in the world. And that's, like I said, that's still a topic today. The current issues of X-Men, spoiler, the X-Men have created their own country. And that's where mutants have a
Extopia.
safe haven. It's called Krakoa. The mutants
Sure.
have a safe haven out in the South Pacific that they rule. They maintain diplomatic relationships with the rest of the world. They've even established a colony on Mars. They treat themselves as a whole separate society than humanity.
But I mean, like, they've separated themselves from humanity, which is exactly what Professor X didn't want.
He and Magneto kind of come to terms over time.
Well, what if we just segregate?
I feel like we're getting ahead.
Yeah,
what
you
if
are
we
getting
just segregate ourselves again?
In comparison, I also went back and did a quick read of a couple Hulk issues from that era, a couple Fantastic Four issues from that era, just to see am I stigmatizing comics from the 60s and saying these are all boring? And no, certainly the artwork is not what comics are today, but the storytelling's there. Fantastic Four is a really lively, fun, family-focused comic. It's this dysfunctional family that goes on these great adventures. Spider-Man is about this dorky kid that kind of wants to have his normal life, but also wants to protect people. Hulk is full of angst, and what do I do about this monster that emerges from me? The X-Men just show up and practice using their powers, and then kind of goof off.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. I could see this. Yeah. I could see
mean,
that being very boring.
At the end of the day, I guess it's about school. So, like, that's kind of, I can see why.
Yeah, and
people-
everybody knows school sucks.
School is boring.
Yeah,
Kids
especially math class.
drop out.
Oh, hey, good news, though. Before
Yeah.
the series does get canceled, Scott gets the girl.
Ooh.
Jean Grey and Scott become a couple.
How long did that take?
Oh. 66
At least
episodes.
40 issues. Yeah.
40 issues?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a while.
It's the last
There's a
episode.
lot of flirtation between her and Warren and Beast, and it's
You're cringy.
it's bad. So that's it for the X-Men, our debut feature on Comic ReLeet. So here's the direction we want to go in next, guys. We could talk about other comic books. We could do an extremely deep dive on individual characters. We can do an extremely deep dive on individual creators. The world is our oyster. We can do whatever we want. I would love to hear from people on our Discord, people that are listening to this episode, and let us know what piques your interest. What do you want us to delve into? What do you want to know about? Not saying we're going to take any of those choices right off the bat, but certainly, it would be interesting to know what's on your mind. What would you like us to talk about, as well as you guys?
I'm for it. Yeah,
if
no,
there's something-
absolutely. I think this is great. Like I could go any direction, to be honest. Like it's all really confusing to me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Yeah, I mean, everything you say, like, the thing is, I have to take your word that you are correct on this, but Jesus, it sounds like it's made up gobbledygook, which it is, but like, just like from the top of your head, and I'm sure if I look it up, it's all legit. And it makes I mean, I don't know.
I'm not saying I'm 100% factually accurate all
Oh,
the
I
time.
think-
I'm sure there are people that could prove me wrong on a couple points, especially if I'm one-offing an answer to one of your guys' questions.
Yeah.
But I'm
Going back through 66 comics, man, that is dedication. I gotta say, I don't think
I feel like this is just the beginning.
Yeah,
I
66 comics that I really didn't enjoy reading. That was the other part.
I mean, like, there was no takeaways. I mean, was there at least one issue? Was it the Havoc issue? Was that your favorite out of the 66?
The Neil Adams, Roy Thomas
Okay.
collaboration, the few issues they were on, like when he joins the book, I went, okay, now we got something here.
And then
is
he
nice.
immediately
And then
leaves.
he's
Yeah.
a few issues later, he's gone.
It's-
But they looked really, really cool.
But
and
he
it
was an
exciting.
artist, not one of the story. Or were a lot of the artists actually writing the stories too during that period of time?
No. It's pretty much the writer does all of the writing and scripting, so they're determining how the characters talk. That's another thing too. And whether it's Stan Lee maybe had taken the well too dry or whether he was spread too thin, I don't feel any of the characters really had individual voices, so to
Okay.
speak. They were all kind of carbon copies of one another and not a lot of personality there.
No,
So-
that makes sense. That makes sense.
I mean, it's tackling quite a large topic that he was trying to kind of go for, and I could see that kind of floundering a bit. But I mean, sounds like they got some grounds later on, and actually,
Yeah.
like. I'm just curious when they come back, which I'm sure we'll cover at some point. Like when X-Men actually gets that revision, like what was that spark that made it go, oh, here we go. Now we're good.
There were a variety of things. One, the writer that took over at that point. So they redid the X-Men in a one-off issue called Giant Size X-Men #1. That was written by a guy named Len. I'm not sure how you
Manuel
pronounce his name.
Miranda?
It's
Yeah.
either Len Wein or Len
God,
Wein.
Hamilton was good.
He brought together the core X-Men group, plus he added in about 7 or 8 new characters, largely international characters. So he brought back Sunfire, he brought back Banshee, he introduced Wolverine, who had shown up in a Hulk comic, and several other new characters. Now, where things really differentiated and what made that comic fantastic was personality. He gave each character
Their own
thing,
kinda
their own vibe, and that worked so well. The writer that took that over from him is a guy named Chris Claremont. He would go on to write the X-Men for something like 30 years. Wow. A 30-year run.
Okay.
And has, by far, my single favorite story arc in all of comic history was him.
Don't tell me what it is. I don't want to know yet. Let's
Okay.
work up to it.
Okay. And the artist that worked with him, a guy named John Byrne, was initially, it was Dave Cockrum and John Byrne were the first two artists that worked with Dave Cockrum. That worked with Chris Claremont. They were fantastic. The level of detail that they put in the artwork even blows Neil Adams
it's
out
just
of the water.
interesting that, like, if it was not a successful comic run, or maybe it was during that period of time, it was just not liked by you. I don't know what the success, like, was it successful? Like, that's the main thing. Like, I don't know if
The revamp of the X-Men or the original?
first 66 was
No,
that successful at all?
Marginal at best, but like I said, when you drop a comic series into, we're just going to reprint the old stuff and not create anything new, that's not a sign.
So
that it's
basically, when
successful.
they go into reruns, which is what that is,
Yeah.
then you know it's over for that comic. But then, I mean, and naturally, people go into the bin and they go, "Oh yeah, that was a comic. I bet we can."
Were there arcs? I mean, there was the Magneto thing kind of thing, but over these 5 years, basically,
small.
Okay.
Lengthy story arcs is actually something that was reintroduced or was introduced with the reintroduction of the X-Men.
Gotcha. Okay.
Chris Claremont would plant storyline seeds that wouldn't develop for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And then all of a sudden something would pop up and you go, oh, I remember that one panel back 3 years ago that referenced that. And he was brilliant at that. And he could also juggle several different storylines and kind of have different ones kind of taking the forefront for a while
sure.
and put the other
Okay.
one on the back burner and then bring in something
Yeah.
new. It brought a level of drama and a level of interest to that comic that grabbed me as a fan. That was the one.
right.
That
It's almost
appealed.
like it's the difference from comics being serialized, like everything is kind of like its own adventure, to becoming more of a drama, like a more cohesive story.
Yeah.
Where, like, there was a shift in comics that started doing that, because you know, like to my knowledge, like all the older comics were like all were one-off adventures that the heroes would do, and they would have their personalities that would kind of a little bit evolve through that. But like at the most part, it's just like here's the Fantastic Four fighting this person.
Yeah.
This is this comic. Now they're doing this. There's no cohesiveness, no like continuation of a story arc, like to my knowledge, until like later on when they started doing several parter series.
Comics had story arcs, but you did see a lot of individual issues. You also saw a lot of writers start to take on what Claremont was doing with having these long-running storylines that took years to pay off. That has changed. I shouldn't say recently. That's changed in the 2000s, and what changed that is the trade paperback market, where comics are now available in paperback issues, because you can't. It's really hard to sell someone a trade paperback, a complete storyline that doesn't have a clear beginning and end, that the storyline is just running perpetually. So what comics started doing is they would do arcs where you had a 4 or 6 story arc that was conveniently packaged. We can put a new cover on this and sell this at Barnes & Noble. That's changed recently, so now you really don't see the long to develop story. It's more short little bursts, and that's it.
Oh, so they're back to like almost square one with like the way they used to do it. Now it's just like one and one. You know,
no. You still see like chapters, segments.
Yeah.
So like most comic storylines will take 4 to 6 issues to run through. It'll have a clear beginning, a clear ending point where they can package that, and then we'll start with a new ending. Now, our new beginning. You may see some references to previous storylines, but it's not something that you have to know the entire lineage of Batman to read current Batman comics. Comic publishers also realize this is a problem. So if you have characters that started in 1960 and you're a teenager today, you're not going to know what was happening back then. You don't have any awareness of that. And thanks to the internet, you might, but you don't have the wealth of knowledge at your hands to know what happened 60 years ago. So one of the things you relatively see, or you see fairly often with comics, is slight little reboots. Not where they're starting the characters over, but maybe there's a new jumping on point where you don't have to know anything that happened for the last year. This is your new starting point. And maybe every 3 to 5 years, they'll give you a point like that where you can jump in again and start reading that comic.
So comics, huh?
Comics are fun.
Comics are fun.
Thank you guys for listening to me.
You've inspired me to maybe read a comic one day.
Yay.
Hey.
Don't choose the first 66 issues of the
I
X-Men.
plan
That's
on
not a good
that's
starting
the
point.
first starting point.
Okay, cool.
Right there.
Thank you for listening, everybody, and please let us know what do you want to hear us talk about, banter about, and know more about. We'll be happy to delve into that, do some research, and bring it to you on a future episode of
Comic ReLeet.